A guy named Dave is driving home from the late shift, stops at a red light, and gets rear-ended by a distracted driver. The cops show up, the other guy admits fault, and Dave thinks he just hit the jackpot because the wreck wasn't his fault. But Dave didn't have car insurance. By the time the dust settles, Dave walks away with nothing for his injuries, and he is on the hook for $15,000 to the other driver. How does the victim of a crash end up paying the person who hit him? It all comes down to a set of rules that kick in the second you decide to drive without coverage. If you're watching this at midnight because you just got into a wreck and you don't have insurance, take a breath. We're going to break down exactly how the law treats this situation, why it's so unforgiving, and what happens next. Let's look at Dave's situation to understand the general rule. Dave lived in a state with something called a pay-to-play law. Pay-to-play is exactly what it sounds like. If you want to play the game of driving on public roads and use the legal system to get money for your injuries, you have to pay for insurance first. Because Dave didn't pay for insurance, he legally couldn't play the lawsuit game. Even though the other driver was 100% at fault for the crash, Dave couldn't sue him for the pain, suffering, or physical injuries he suffered. Now, keep in mind, this varies heavily by state. Not every state has strict pay-to-play laws. But even in states that don't have a formal pay-to-play rule, driving without insurance triggers a massive legal landmine that almost always blows up in the uninsured driver's face. That landmine is called comparative negligence. Negligence is just the legal word for carelessness. When a crash happens, the insurance companies look at everyone's actions to figure out who was careless and by how much. Some states use pure comparative negligence, which means they look at the wreck as a pie chart of blame. If you're 50% at fault, you can only collect 50% of the money. But many states use modified comparative negligence. That usually means if you're even slightly more than 50% at fault for a crash, you can't collect a single dime from the other guy. Here's where driving without insurance destroys you. Insurance companies are masters at shifting blame. If you're driving without insurance, their lawyers will aggressively argue that your very presence on the road was illegal, careless behavior. They'll try to tack a percentage of the blame onto you, even if you were just sitting at a red light like Dave. If they successfully pin enough of the blame on you, your claim disappears entirely. You walk away with nothing. But wait, it actually gets worse. Let's say you get into a crash, you don't have insurance, but the accident was completely, entirely the other person's fault. A drunk driver swerves into your lane and totals your car. You might be thinking that you're safe because they were entirely at fault. You might think you can just file a claim with their insurance company and get paid. But there's another hurdle. To get paid by the other guy's insurance, you usually have to prove you've active coverage yourself. It's a catch-22. The insurance industry has spent decades lobbying lawmakers to write the rules this way. They want to punish you financially for not participating in the insurance market. They know that without insurance, you're going to have a brutally hard time navigating the claims process. They can delay, deny, and defend. They know you can't afford a lawyer to fight them, so they offer you pennies on the dollar, or they just deny your claim outright, knowing you don't have the leverage to force a fair payout. Now, what happens if the roles are reversed? What if you're the one driving without insurance and you caused the crash? This is where a simple mistake turns into a financial catastrophe that can follow you for decades. Impound means the government legally seizes your car and locks it in a towing yard. You can't just walk down there and ask for your keys back. To get the car out of the impound lot, you've to prove to the police and the lot manager that you've purchased a valid, active insurance policy for that specific vehicle. On top of that, you've to pay the towing fee, and you've to pay the daily storage fee for every single day your car sat in that dirt lot. These fees add up shockingly fast. Sometimes, the towing and storage fees rack up so quickly that they exceed the actual value of the entire car. People end up abandoning their vehicles because they simply can't afford the ransom to get them back. It's a brutal, fast-moving trap that turns a bad night into a permanent financial setback. So how does the law actually view your liability when the dust settles? Liability is just the legal word for legal responsibility or fault. If you cause a crash and you've insurance, your liability is basically capped at the limits of your insurance policy. If you bought a policy that pays up to $50,000 in damage, your insurance company pays that $50,000, and you walk away. The injured party generally can't come after your personal savings. But if you're driving without insurance, your liability is completely unlimited. There's no ceiling. You're personally liable for every single dollar of damage you cause, right down to the last penny. If you cause $1 million in medical bills and property damage, you legally owe $1 million. They can legally take your house, drain your savings account, and garnish your wages for the rest of your natural life to satisfy that massive, unlimited debt. You're essentially gambling your entire financial future, your home, and your paycheck every single time you turn the ignition without that little insurance card in your wallet. If you're watching this because you're currently in a jam, you're probably wondering when you need to talk to a lawyer. The simple truth is, the moment you're in a wreck without insurance, you need local legal advice. Laws vary wildly by state, and the specific sequence of events matters immensely. You might have a few narrow defenses available, or there might be strict deadlines ticking away right now that will permanently destroy your ability to defend yourself. A licensed attorney in your specific area can look at the exact facts of your crash and tell you exactly where you stand. You absolutely shouldn't try to negotiate with a hostile insurance company or a collections department by yourself when the stakes are this high. They deal with desperate, uninsured drivers every single day, and they know exactly which psychological buttons to push to make you accept a terrible deal or admit to something you shouldn't. A lawyer levels the playing field. If you can't afford private counsel, look up your local legal aid society. They often provide free help to people facing massive civil judgments they simply can't pay. Let's be incredibly clear about what this video is. This is straight education about how the legal machine generally operates. It's absolutely not legal advice for your specific personal situation. I can't tell you exactly what to do in your shoes because I don't know the specific details of your wreck or the exact laws in your jurisdiction. Your state legislature writes its own unique traffic and insurance laws, and they change them all the time. What might be true in Ohio could be completely different in Texas or Florida. Always consult a licensed attorney in your state who can give you real guidance tailored to your actual life. Never take a YouTube video as the final word on your legal rights. You need an expert in your corner looking at your actual paperwork. Getting into a crash without insurance is a nightmare scenario, but understanding the mechanics of the law removes the fear of the unknown. The system is incredibly rigid, and it will absolutely punish you financially for skipping out on your monthly premium. It uses tools like blame shifting, pay-to-play rules, and unlimited personal liability to make sure uninsured drivers pay a heavy toll. Knowing exactly how that machinery works is the very first step to protecting yourself and navigating the fallout without losing absolutely everything you've worked so hard to build. Has an uninsured driver ever hit your car, or had you ever made the mistake of driving without coverage and learned the hard way? Tell me your story down in the comments below. If this breakdown helped you understand the brutal reality of how the insurance game is played, please share the video with a buddy who might be rolling the dice every time they drive to work. And make sure to subscribe to Scribble Law so you always know the actual rules before life puts you in the hot seat.